So does therapy work? And if so, how? Many well-controlled and designed studies have shown that therapy works better than placebo or waitlist control conditions. Moreover, in many cases, therapy works better than medication. And when combined, medication and therapy together often work best of all. So how does therapy work? Well, there's a number of reasons that therapy works and ways in which it does so. The first reason is that we have often had a traumatic experience or many traumatic experiences in our past. And as you probably know, when you remember those experiences, they bring up feelings such as discomfort, fear, anger, revulsion, or anxiety. And each time that you bring up that memory and you experience those emotions, you react physically with things like a racing heart or tension or fast breathing. And each time this happens, you're reconsolidating that memory to be connected to those unpleasant emotions and bodily reactions. When we recall a memory, it automatically becomes malleable, which allows us to take in new information associated with the memory and reconsolidate it to update it to our current situation. In therapy, we use that to our advantage. For most of us, when those memories come up, we experience negative feelings and negative reactions in our body, and that reconsolidates the memory to be negative and traumatic. In therapy, we bring up those memories and instead we update it with new information, such as I'm no longer in that situation and I'm safe now, or I'm no longer being shamed by my parents and I can begin to trust. In essence, we are processing the memory to update it until it's no longer associated with the traumatic reaction from our body and our feelings. The next thing that we do in therapy is experiencing heightened emotions. Now, many of you may think that those heightened emotions are negative or unpleasant emotions, and that's not always the case. I include heightened positive emotions in therapy sessions as well. What we want to do is, instead of having a full session with one particular emotion, we want to pendulate back and forth between a strong emotion, say fear, and then the other way to a sense of calm, or towards anger and pendulate back to a sense of connectivity, or pendulate into sorrow and then back into joy. Each time we do that, we are in fact widening the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is your ability to withstand unpleasant experiences and emotions. Many people have a fairly small window of tolerance, making it difficult to self-regulate. As we pendulate back and forth between those emotions in session, we slowly widen that window of tolerance until you have a much wider window, which then allows you to have more experiences outside of the therapy room while staying regulated. In essence, it gives you more control over your reaction to situations and experiences. The third way that many therapists work in session is incorporating what you might call body work. This includes breathing, meditation, and some forms of movement. There are two main reasons that we do this type of work. The first is that we want to use breathing techniques or other calming techniques to help us learn to bring ourselves back from heightened emotions that are unpleasant, which then allows us to widen our window of tolerance and increases our sense of control over our reactions and feelings. For movement, we often have physical reactions to memories, thoughts, behaviors, or emotions. For example, maybe you hurt your knee, and even after your knee has physically healed as much as possible, when you remember that injury, your knee begins to hurt again. It becomes tense and painful. Maybe your breathing and heart rate increase because the pain is stressful. And so by completing certain movements in therapy, we can begin to move that pain and tension out of that area and unpair those feelings from the memory of injuring your knee. Again, this works to unpair memories from reactions and feelings, and also to widen that window of tolerance. The next thing that makes therapy work is what we call the therapeutic relationship. And this is actually the biggest factor in whether therapy is successful. By developing a safe, trusting relationship with your therapist, you begin to have experiences of what it's like to have a connected experience with another person who holds you in what we call unconditional positive regard. By having this experience, in many cases, you're undoing past relationship patterns that cause you harm because you weren't cared for or you weren't heard, and you're repeating feelings, thoughts, and behaviors from those negative relational experiences. This therapeutic relationship allows you to open up again to a state of connection where you can take in new learning and new experiences without connecting them to past relationships that negatively impacted you. Another way that therapy works is by targeting thought, behavior, or emotional patterns. By finding what patterns are stuck in your life, we can then look at them and decide what changes you'd like to make that would make it more adaptable to your daily life. For example, if you are constantly feeling anxiety in daily life, that's not a very adaptive response. And so what we want to do is figure out where the anxiety is coming from, what's happening in your body, and what the thoughts are that bring that up. We then target those behaviors, thoughts, or emotions and change the patterns. In essence, rewiring the system so that you no longer have that reaction of anxiety in your daily life. A lot of people question the effectiveness of therapy, but the reality is our brains are what we call plastic, meaning they can be changed. As you might know, you have one really negative experience, say a car accident, and your brain changes drastically. You begin to fear cars, have anxiety or panic attacks, and feel a great deal of distress. And just as your brain can be changed from those really negative experiences, it can also be changed from positive experiences, such as those you experience in the therapy room. So trauma changes the brain, but so does healing. In reality, what therapists are doing is looking for overdeveloped areas of the brain, underdeveloped areas of the brain, areas that are disconnected from one another, overutilized neurocircuits or pathways, and underdeveloped ones too. What we then do in therapy is target the areas that are underdeveloped and redevelop them, which then balances them out with the overdeveloped areas. We also work to connect emotion and thoughts, which then reconnects those areas of the brain that have become weakened over time from certain patterns or schemas that we repeat over and over again. So by working with a therapist, you are literally changing your brain and your nervous system. It's an incredible thing to see clients go from the state of distress, anxiety, or dysregulation that brought them into therapy into the state that they live in when they graduate from our therapeutic sessions. The change can be miraculous, and it certainly doesn't happen overnight, but slowly and surely the brain and body change. It's not only possible, it's right in front of you.